Two cities, my young friends. I'm just gonna be real honest right now. This last week and into the weekend, it was, kind of a normal week with regards to time with my family, time with my children, time with my wife, the responsibilities that you have to do, ins and outs of your week. But honestly, on top of that, guys, it was a really emotional week. I got to listen and spend some time with some friends and people in our church and our community group who are just in some really hard emotional places. And a lot of that really is attributed to, one, we're on the heels of still dealing with the uncertainty, a lot of the disruption, the loss surrounding COVID. And then you just kind of land also just in the middle of a time of our world where there's a lot of racial tension, where there's a lot of injustices kind of being brought to the surface, and we are seeing our world react in ways that have never been seen or done in our lifetime. And it's in these moments that sometimes I just am trying to get better at listening. I think that's an important quality that I've gotten feedback from several peers of mine, and I just want to not be quick to have an opinion always and just to rush to click and pass something on that I just recently read. Instead, I'm just trying to be better at slowing it down again and running it through the lens of something I find in the Word, love. Something that would, if we think about it, would slow us down often with our emotional responses or with our quickness to post something that, again, maybe isn't very reflective of what we would be doing or thinking if we took a moment to process or if we sought advice from some of our friends. So I want to look at the scripture real quick. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4 through 7. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant. It's not cocky or rude. It does not insist on its own way, which means your experiences or even your naivety. It doesn't insist upon those things. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, wishing poor things on people that you might think deserve something, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things. It believes all things. It hopes all things. It endures all things. I think if we had the ability in every moment of our day to obviously stop before I respond to mom, stop before I respond to my siblings, stop before I get irritated at those people and I just mouth off at them, stop before I post this, and I read this scripture, it would probably allow us not to respond in the way that, again, we might find regrettable or 2 hours later be like, man, why did I say that? That's the importance of why we say, hey, let's spend more time in the Word so that in those moments, that actually is starting to become part of our character and it comes out of us so that we aren't every minute having to pause to do something like that before we respond. It's actually beginning to shape us. So like I said last week, man, it was a full week, it was a good week, it was a hard week, it was an emotional week. There were several meaningful conversations and hard ones. There was just, again, a richness shared between some of us that I'm excited to get to be able to do more of soon. But it's in weeks like that I think about just a speech that I heard years ago. I got to see it live, and it remains probably one of the most inspiring speeches in my lifetime. Jimmy Valvano, he was the head coach of NC State, and his body was riddled with cancer, and he gave a speech not too long before he passed away. He wanted every part of what he had left to still be a light. And in that moment, he stood on stage and he gave a speech, and if you ever need just a pick-me-up for breakfast or lunch, just something to kind of inspire, Google it, look it up. But in that moment, I think about this past week, and I always didn't think about him. That's the impression he left on me. And he said, man, if you've had a week where you've been able to think, laugh, and cry, that's a full week. That's a heck of a week. If we could do that 7 days a week, man, we might be onto something special. That was one of those weeks last week. And that's part of the conversation I'm looking forward to us having around some of the events that are happening in our world here in the coming weeks. I think there's a lot to be listened and absorbed and then obviously processed and reflected upon. It was a bit of a heavy weekend, and I think it's still gonna be some heavier weeks, but I just want to encourage us with our reactions to look to the Word. Let's continue to love well. I love you guys. We continue to pray for you. I'm excited to be with you in some capacity soon, and we will see you soon.